and Bishop Dwayne Royster, Executive Director of Power, the state of Pennsylvania's largest multi-faith, multi-race-based organizing movement with over 100 congregations of multiple faith traditions operating in 9 counties across the state. With me is Amadi Braxton, activist, documentarian, philanthropist, counselor, coach, and consultant. Ms. Braxton, how you doing tonight?
I am doing well. I am doing well. It's quite windy out, but the sun is back, so I'm happy.
Yes, I saw my lawn furniture going back and forth on my deck, so I was like, oh, geez, that's not good. That's not good. Each week, we come to you on Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. to bring you the organizers, movement and thought leaders, elected officials, and community members who are creating solutions to the issues that impact your life on the local, state, national, and international levels. On the board tonight is engineer extraordinaire Troy Wilmore, who is capably producing and engineering the show.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
I just want to say, Troy, that every time you play that, it's actually quite frightening. So I just want to let you know.
Look, he's putting you on. He's putting us on alert.
Absolutely. He's
Better,
like, he's got a special
all
set of
callers
skills.
better behave, and the hosts better do what they need. They know they need to do.
We better do what Troy tells us to do. Is what that means. Hey, tonight, we have Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, who actually is the co-host with me of the 6 a.m. show, Power Hour. He's going to be on tonight to talk about Black Bikers Vote, which is a big bikers rally taking place tomorrow about bikers going out and getting people registered to vote and helping them to understand what's on the ballot. So he's going to be here to talk with us about that about 5:20. And the rest of the conversation is going to be between us tonight. So we want to welcome you as our primary guest. To join in the conversation, feel free to call 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. You can also call toll-free if you need to. Most people call on cell phones, so it's usually not an issue. 1-866-361-0900. You can also listen online at wordradio.com. And we are live on Facebook right now and on YouTube. You can actually go to Facebook right now and find out where it says Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster are live. Let me turn the volume down because you can actually hear me talking. And so feel free to hit us up, say hello on Facebook, and hit the share button. Let people know that you're listening to Solutions on Word, and they can join in the conversation with us on tonight. So just hit that share button right there, just like I did, and where it says right post, and hit post to it, and it's now shared on my page. Feel free to share it on your page as well. We're grateful for everybody checking us out. Malcolm White just hit us up, said he's watching from West Mount Airy. Thank you, Malcolm, for checking us out each and every Friday that he's normally here with us. All right, Ms. Braxton, what's on your mind today?
Well, I watched Biden's speech. His address to the joint session of Congress, which was, a little scant, a little thin in the audience because of COVID, of course. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, instead of the loud applause we usually hear at those things, like at the State of the Union address, we heard like scant clapping off in the distance. But yeah, and I was really energized by it, I have to say.
Wow.
He is he's calling for very common sense things that we need, and it feels like, at least in his rhetoric, he's trying to turn the page on Reaganomics. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, the government needs to spend a lot of money on things that people need, which is refreshing, I should say. And the fact that he is just coming out with, $1 trillion package after $1 trillion package, I'm kind of loving it. So
it was kind of fun that he said, he turned to the congressional leadership and said, trickle down economics doesn't work. I was like, wow, yes. That was very powerful statement in that moment. I don't want to get too far off the vice president, but I'm just curious. Did you watch Tim Scott's response at the end? Did you happen to see that?
I watched snippets later. I couldn't. I just.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, talk about carrying the water of the white supremacist hegemony. Put it that way.
Yes, I hear you on that. But anyway, let's get back. So first of all,
he's saying racism isn't a problem in America, yet he has been followed around stores and racial profiled, but yet racism isn't a problem.
Now the problem was that people referred to him as Uncle Tom because of who he was. That was his notice.
Uncle Tim. Uncle Tim.
No, that's what they call him now. But he said no. He actually said out of his mouth that referred to him as Uncle Tom.
Yes.
And so, you know,
I understand
that was that was him pointing to the level of discrimination that he's experienced in this world. So I'm like, if that's all I just felt bad because
he did talk about getting followed. Didn't he say I've been followed around in stores and I've been.
Yeah, that's yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, but he talked about his grandfather. I'm just curious what his grandfather, because he talked a lot about his grandfather in his speech and about being raised single mom, living with their grandparents. I'm just really curious what his grandfather, who grew up in the Jim Crow South, would have to say about the message that he gave on Tuesday night. I'm just really curious about that because I can't imagine that he would be even remotely satisfied with anything that his grandson said from that platform. So that is that's a thing. But anyway, let's go back to the president because I mean he was talking about some solutions, and so
yes.
I just need to go back to my Twitter feed for a minute. So those of you that want to follow me on Twitter, it's @DDRoyster because I made some very poignant comments on Twitter. And not that I normally do this, that I want to go back and read my Twitter feed.
So what, you were live tweeting?
I was live tweeting during yes, I was actually live tweeting during the event there. So let me just say a couple things that I said. So I said, it's just curious, the Republicans don't want to cut childhood poverty in half. Evidently, Republicans support poverty. Next time, you Republicans better stand when the president says we cut childhood poverty in half. So Mitch McConnell, who normally looks like he's dead, you know, was sitting there and not moving and just, you know, being still. But none of the Republicans, when they talked about a part of the American Rescue Plan, was actually extending child tax credit that really supports families. And as a result of that, I mean, according to the federal standard of poverty, right, which is really not. A lot of more people live above the federal standard of poverty that are still living in poverty. Let's just be honest about that. But anyway, that they did not want to, the Republicans evidently are okay with childhood poverty because otherwise they should have been standing. But I guess because, you know, the Republicans in the Senate, none of them voted for the American Rescue Plan. I guess they couldn't stand and take credit for that.
Can I just ask in terms of the standing, you know, giving standing ovations and stuff? I mean, do they organize beforehand and say, okay, no one's allowed to stand up when he says anything that's nice, or we're only allowed to clap during certain I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is a thing that they do. But, you know, I mean, in this particular moment, you know, he should have stood up. I mean, when he talked about the fact that they had gotten over 200 million people vaccinated already, at least with one shot, you know, in this first 100 days, right? You know, some of them did stand, some of them didn't stand on that one. They were, you know, quasi up on that one. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, here's another one. I said, evidently, Representative Kevin McCarthy, who is the House Minority Leader, he's a Republican Minority Leader, supports Americans drinking lead-filled water. Now, at this point, the president was talking about the fact that, you know, through the jobs bill, the jobs and infrastructure bill that they want to put forth, that part of this would be about fixing the water lines, and that they would they're going to replace all the water lines in the country, every single one. That's a massive undertaking, and that you know a lot of folks are drinking lead-based water. I mean, water's got lead in it. I mean, we saw this in Flint, Michigan, but it's actually in many cities around the country, including some in Pennsylvania, that have water that's been filled with lead because of the piping that they have. So that seems like that would be something good and that we're going to put people to work.
Something universally seen as a positive.
Yeah, but evidently Kevin McCarthy's okay with people drinking lead-filled water because he just sat there on his thumbs, kind of looking blank-faced at the whole time, right? So then the president talks about the fact that the jobs bill, which is like $4 trillion, is a blue-collar bill, and it's really about getting blue-collar people back to work, right? People who don't have college degrees, people who, might have a VOTEC, training and education program. And he said that this was going to be a blue-collar American, this is a jobs plan that is blue-collar plan to rebuild America. Now, I mean, despite the fact that he's a president, Joe Biden really is a blue-collar kind of guy. Even the way he presented himself that night was very plain spoken language, right? Nothing fancy, nothing, I love President Obama, but when you listen to President Obama talk, you need a thesaurus, a dictionary, and some sort of encyclopedia next to you at the same time, right? So this was very plain spoken Joe, right? It was just, and it was very, very helpful. And he was talking to a blue collar American. He's like, I'm going to put you back to work. But evidently the Republicans didn't support blue collar. They don't support blue collar Americans because they didn't seem to think that that was something worthwhile investing in. They had a big problem with that. So, so then the president gets on there. Now this was their guys' thing, right? Trump was all about trying to reduce drug costs, that the pharmaceutical drugs were too expensive. So President Biden gets up there and says, we're going to reduce the cost of pharmaceuticals, right? We're going to negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies. We're going to get the price down. They didn't react. They just sat there. And it was their guy that brought this up in the first place. So evidently, the Republicans like us having really expensive drugs. And they evidently like us being poor, trying to choose between feeding ourselves and getting pharmaceutical medication. So, I mean, just really just painful to watch. And in many ways, the president was pleading with them, kind of like, come on, let's get on the same page. Let's move this country forward. And they're just absolutely obstinate about that. I mean, it was a conversation about terrorism, conversation about immigration, conversation, when to bring the troops home from Afghanistan, all these things that even some of the stuff their guy was talking about, and they won't support it now just because. And I'm like, that's petty, and it's small, and it is very problematic for us as a nation if we expect to be able to go anywhere. He said he's trying to tell people that America is back, and then our allies across the country, across the world, were saying to him, how long? How long before another Trump rises up? How long before Ted Cruz gets elected? How long before, Mitch McConnell or Kevin McCarthy becomes president of the United States and then goes back and we get back into this place of white supremacy and we get back to this place of isolationism? How long? It reminds me of the psalmist that asked the question, how long, Lord, how long? Just crying out like that. So I'm sorry, I just dominated the whole conversation about this, but I had a lot to say about this. It was very painful. It's very painful.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, well, I'll just say one last thing. I know we have to go to a break. Here's the other thing I appreciate about this administration. So during the commercial break, or at the end of the speech, it went to an ad supporting I don't know if it was the Family's Plan or the Infrastructure Plan, but they have a whole advertising campaign to support all of their policy proposals that they're putting out. And I just think it's beautiful because normally I've been thinking that for years, like, how come they don't advertise proactively in a positive, affirming way, a narrative, a message to reinforce their policy proposals? Well, all we see is like negative ads against,
right,
from, these special interest groups or whatever. And the Biden administration or whatever PACs are supporting these policies, they have ads that they're running in prime time. So, and they're really good ads, by the way. So I just think they're very tight. They've got it together. They're promoting the right things, and I'm very pleased about it.
Awesome.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Grandpa Joe's coming through.
Well, he's probably what we needed for America right now. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All
Well,
right.
we are up on our break. On the other side of, I'll take us to the break and you can bring us back.
Okay, sounds good.
On the other side of the break, we'll be joined by Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler, who's going to talk to us about a very special Get Out the Vote effort he's involved in that involves motorcycles. You're listening to Solutions on WURD with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. A fire location in Northeast Philly, Common Avenue at Milner Street. It's at a waste management facility, we understand. A couple of accidents we're watching. 30 bypass westbound between 340 and Reeseville Road. Also a crash in Cherry Hill, 70 westbound between 295 and Westgate Drive. The left lane is blocked there. Traffic back to Green Tree Road. Schuylkill eastbound jams, Blue Route to Gladwin. Also City Avenue to University Avenue. Westbound jams, University Avenue to Montgomery Drive. And the Boulevard to Belmont Avenue. Delays on 95 northbound Vine Expressway to Bridge Street, southbound through the construction, Copman to Girard, and the Vine backs up westbound between 8th and the Schuylkill Expressway. Report brought to you by Audible. Give spring a whole new sound with Audible Plus. Listen all you want to thousands of select Audible originals, audiobooks, and podcasts, including exclusive series. Start a free 30-day Audible Plus trial when you sign up at audible.com. That's audible.com. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
This WURD Wellness Vignette is brought to you by Keystone First. WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
This is Halana, your resident expert health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Let's talk about your choice not to smoke. Now, of all the healthy lifestyle choices you can make, this could be the most important. Did you know that smoking causes cancer, heart disease, and even type 2 diabetes? Smoking is also responsible for upwards of 440,000 American deaths per year. Here's the thing. When you smoke, it becomes difficult for the blood in your body to flow freely, often leaving you tired and cranky. It also contributes to the decrease in circulation, which can severely affect your immune system. In a time where we need our immune system to be in tip-top shape to keep us healthy and safe, choosing not to smoke is one of the best choices you could make. Commit to living smoke-free today and boost your immune system in as little as 1 day. Let's choose to strengthen our immune systems, improve our lung function, and decrease our risk for stroke or heart attack by not smoking. Choosing not to smoke is something we can all do to support our overall personal and community health. Go ahead, commit today. Stay well with WURD. Happy, healthy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. This WURD Wellness Vignette was brought to you by Keystone First. For more information, visit KeystoneFirstPA.com.
Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School is proud to be celebrating 20 years serving Philadelphia students. We are a public charter school serving grades 5 through 8 and located in Southwest Philadelphia. We are committed to serving the entire child and are dedicated to preparing children to be successful in school and in life. We are now accepting students in 5th grade and taking waiting list applications in other grades. Apply at www.applyphillycharter.org. You have a right to choose. Choose greatness. Choose Richard Allen.
Spring forward to throwback. All this month, when you start or renew your WURD membership, you'll get exclusive WURD throwback swag, vintage backpacks, books, and tees. While supplies last. Offer ends April 30th. Sow seeds into Black Talk Media and grow with us. Visit wordradio.com/join now to start or renew today. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from the Kinnell Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, WURD Radio, and more. Oh, I guess we're hiring. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURD works.com, and click jobs.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. And looking for a job, here's an opportunity. It's great. Well, welcome back to Solutions on WURD with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. Hey, just a quick shout out to all of the folk that are listening. I see Raphael out there, Shalata Sankofa. Hey, our friend Ken Goodrich from Florida is there. And then right behind him is Val King from Maine. We are a countrywide show. We
are up and down the eastern seaboard.
There you go.
Top to bottom.
It is all good. Bishop Dr. Peggy Kendrick is with us. Diane Fawcett is here. Kia Booker from the great state of Virginia is listening in today. And so we appreciate that. If you're listening to us right now, either on Facebook or YouTube, hey, just say hello to us out there, and we'll make sure we give you a shout out to say thanks for watching the show and being a part of this with us. Well, I feel like I'm a little bit sandwiched between co-hosts right now. So joining us right now is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, who's co-host with me early in the morning of the Power Hour. He is pastor of the Mother Bethel AME Church. He's a leader within Power Interfaith Movement, and he is joining us now to tell us about an exciting event happening tomorrow. How are you there, Rev?
Hey, glad to be here with the both of you. Glad to be with you, Amadi. Glad to be back with you again today. Did you just sleep in the virtual studio all day until your next show?
Yeah, pretty much. That's all I did. I just laid down on the floor and got back up when it was time to do this show. So
there were real days when we would have to do that in person.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, you are doing a really big Get Out the Vote event tomorrow. And wanted to lift that up and let people hear about it and tell us what you got going on.
Well, listen, I mean, you would not believe this, but I'm actually working on the route as we speak. We just had a big change, so now it's actually been officially permitted, which is great because that means we can go through red light cameras. That's a big deal when you have hundreds of dollars of tickets people give you at the end of the ride saying, hey, you gonna cover this? So so again, we're changing some things. It's gonna even be better and smoother now. We're doing a ride tomorrow to promote the importance of voting, and we're really targeting low propensity voters and voting wards that have historically turned out low in big and small elections in Philadelphia. So we're going to ride from West Philly all the way up to Cheltenham, to Enon Tabernacle, where we'll end. But we're going to begin at Church of Christian Compassion on 62nd and Cedar. We're going to start gathering at 1 o'clock tomorrow. As we say in the biking world, kickstands up at 2. And then we're going to ride all the way through Philadelphia. And, I mean, it's interesting. I think I shared this with you earlier, Bishop, that when I rode the route to just kind of make sure that everything, is open and things of that nature, you could feel under the tires of the motorcycle the difference between being in a high voting area and a low voting area. That speaks volumes. I mean, voting determines the resources that come to your community or not, and so many other things as well. And so for the people who've given up, we're riding so that when they look and see black bikers riding 100 to 200 deep tomorrow, that, people who think that it's a waste or they're too cool to vote or whatever, you can't tell me you're cooler than them. And if they're riding in support of voting, then maybe it's something that you ought to look at.
Yes. Tell us, I mean, why now? Why this particular election are you doing this effort?
Well, we did it first in October during the presidential election in Philly, and then we took it on the road. We did it in Georgia during the runoff in Atlanta. We did one in Columbus, Georgia, and Albany, as they say there, as well. Great time. But, I mean, let's look all around us, right? I mean, in Florida today, they just passed more restrictive laws against, that will make it more difficult for black voters to vote. They're following the footsteps of Georgia. In Pennsylvania, if it were not for a particular governor who will not sign those bills, the same thing would be happening in Pennsylvania right now. And so we need people to understand that there is a historic fight for access to the polls for African Americans, and it is not just in Eyes on the Prize videos, but it is happening right now in the present. And one last thing, that in this election, we're voting for a district attorney and for judges. Now, the ride tomorrow is nonpartisan, but yet I just want to lift up the fact that before most Philadelphians will stand before President Joe Biden or Governor Wolf personally, or even the mayor for that matter, you will stand before a judge for some reason, family court, municipal court, common pleas court. You will stand before an ADA representing the district attorney. And so the thing that hits closest to us, all these stories that we've talked about in the news, the ways in which law enforcement responds or does not respond when unarmed black people are shot and killed by police or vigilantes, that begins in the district attorney's office. That plays itself out with a judge who's going to, preside over some trial. And so this is absolutely critical that people show up on May 18th for the primary, that they register to vote before May 3rd, and that they show up tomorrow to ride on May 1st so that we can encourage people to do both of those things.
I got you. So who's riding with you, and what's the route? Where are you going? Where are you stopping?
I mean, who's not riding? I mean, we've got independents, we've got clubs. Pastor Alan Waller, Enon Tabernacle is riding. Pastor Lonnie Herndon of, Christian Compassion Church, where we're kicking off, he is riding. We have a group of alphas, my frat brothers, they're riding up. They have a motorcycle club, the 06 Riders from Maryland and Virginia. They're coming up 15, 16 deep in the morning to be a part of this. We're going to begin, again, at Church of Christian Compassion. We're going to leave at 2 p.m. right there at 62nd and Cedar. But before we actually really officially start the ride, the entire pack is going to ride right up the street a few blocks, turn left onto Osage into the 6200 block of Osage Avenue. And we're going to ride through that neighborhood to show our respect to the victims of the MOVE bombing and some support for that neighborhood that's really had a tough week in the news the last several days. And then we're going to come back down to Cedar, and then we're going to rip. Now we're going to go past Mosaic Community Church, Mount Pisgah AME Church in West Philly, both of them, North Philly to St. Paul's Baptist, up at the Germantown First United Methodist Church, and then into Enon. All those places that we're going to pass by, those churches, have ongoing voter registration work tomorrow being led by our very own Kendra Cochran with Power. And I can't speak enough about how she's been just wonderful in organizing that. So as we're riding, they're going to be registering. And we want people to likewise call your nephews, your nieces, your cousins, your friends, and remind them that you've got a couple of days left to register to vote for the upcoming election.
So folk can go out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Mount Pisgah, I think, is up the street from me. What time are you going to be there?
Come on out, Amadi, and just put a chair out there and wave at us when we roll down the route.
Absolutely. What time do I have to make sure I'm out there? You're leaving at what time?
We're leaving at 2 from Christian Compassion. So we're on motorcycles. We're not in cars, and we got a police escort now. That means we're rolling. And so I would say 2:15 to 2:30, so you don't miss us. Yep.
All right, I'll be out there.
So if folk want to register to vote tomorrow, they can go to Mosaic Church, which is where?
Mosaic is on 51st and Sampson. You can go to Mount Pisgah on 41st and Powelton. You can go to 10th and Wallace, where Reverend Leslie Callahan is the pastor, St. Paul's Baptist, or you can go to First United Methodist Church on Germantown Ave in Germantown. Everybody knows where Foomcog Church is there.
Wait a minute. Y'all are riding down Germantown Avenue on bikes?
So, listen, I told you, we just got I literally just hung out with the folks. So we're gonna do a different route because now we have a police escort. So I'm not worried about that red light camera up on North Broad. So I won't divulge our exact route, because just in case there's some folk out there who want to do some nasty things to us. But I will just simply say we're not going to do all Germantown Avenue now, and for that I am rejoicing in my seat. I wrote, listen, so you know, we ride together, and I wrote it, you know, the other day, and that's about a 2.5, 3 mile, you know, ride from Broad up to the church.
Oh,
and brother,
absolutely.
it's about the worst 3 miles that you could ever ride, and I know those folk would be back there cursing my name every bump that they would hit.
Yeah, I really thought about that. Unfortunately, my bike is not up in Pennsylvania, so I won't be on the ride with you tomorrow. But I'll be there, but I'm not going to be riding my bike. I'll be in my car. But I also want to make sure we check on the team to make sure that we're getting the voter registrations in. So I got you on this. And I mean, is this going to become sort of a tradition in Philadelphia that we're going to be doing the Black Bikers vote? I mean, I think it's powerful that Black bikers are getting out there. I saw that there was a certain person by the name of Leslie Patterson Tyler that quoted on Facebook that said, "Voting is cool," with some sunglasses emoji. You know, is this another way of us getting the Black community to say, look, we all need to get engaged in voting?
I certainly hope so. I mean, you know, when you think about the civil rights movement that actually gave us the right to vote, the folk who fought for us, when you look back, we focus on the church, you know, we focus on, you know, the handful of elected officials and people like that, the organizers. But the truth of the matter is, it was a big coalition. And when I remember we did this in October, there were like some older bikers who, I mean, you know, these folk had, you know, they earned their cuts like back in the 60s and 70s. And what they said is, you know, this is what we need to get back to. They said, this is what we were always about. And not the foolishness and the nonsense. I mean, you know, there's a certain degree of all of that that's going to be around any time. But the fact is that as a community, we recognize that every single part, I mean, barbershops and beauty shops, Black radio, Black newspapers, that, you know, fraternities, sororities, we have all pulled our weight. And I think this is just our way of saying that we're not going to be absent in this fight.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very excited about that. So just go ahead, Marty.
Well, I just want to ask, so when you have done this, do you get people just join, you know, just seeing your whole squad going and they're on their bikes and they just file in behind and join you?
Absolutely. But let me just tell you the part that is just like the most amazing to me. So Marty, I rock with this huge, you know, the Afro-American flag, the red, black, and green off the back of my bike. And, you know, so it's a long black Harley. And so that flag, when it's waving in the wind, it's just killer, you know. And so the thing that really gets me is when people see it and they recognize that, oh, wait, this is not just guys riding and women riding. They're riding for a purpose. And, I mean, you watch Black folk literally stand up straight. And I've told this to Bishop repeatedly. I mean, you know, brothers, I mean, I saw this one older brother, he raised his fist up in the air. And this time it'll be very clear what we're doing. We have a flatbed truck in front. Reverend Nick O'Rourke, our good friend and brother, will be our hype man, telling people what we're about, encourage them to vote. In the back, we'll actually have a digital sign, portable sign, you know, register to vote, Black bikers vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there is something about, you know, Black bikers when we are together and in uniform, it does something that just makes people proud.
That's awesome. I can't wait to be out there at the corner. Any listeners want to join me tomorrow at Mount Pisgah in West Powelton? That will be at 40. I'm like, where do I live?
We're going to
41st.
We're going to start moving our way. Man, let me tell you, it's going to be tempting when we cross over Spring Garden past the art museum, because you know we're going to bank a Yui and like go in front of those museum steps and jump off and take a quick picture. And Haley said she's going to see us there. Haley's going to see us there in West Philly. Check us out tomorrow.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, we're very excited. I'm excited about this event. You have no idea how excited I am about this. And I'm hoping that we're continuing a tradition of building Black empowerment, right? All segments of the Black community coming together to build Black power. So that's a real special treat. So Reverend Tyler, if folk want to find out more information about the ride, they need to get access, where can they go to find more information?
the hashtag across all platforms, hashtag Black Bikers Vote, will take you there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You will find it. The flyers there again. Meeting at 1 p.m. Church of Christian Compassion, 62nd and Cedar. Kickstands up at 2 o'clock, and we should be at Enon like about 3:15, depending on how fast we decide to ride.
If y'all gonna stop in front of the Art Museum, you're not getting there at 3:15.
I said it would be tempting. You know, I'm probably not going to be able to do it, but I would love to.
I think that would be great. I think it would be absolutely fantastic. All these black bikers standing in front of the Rocky Steps, with black fist up, talking about black power. That would be absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And I'm sorry, one more thing. You can also email us at you can just send an email to blackbikersvote@gmail.com. blackbikersvote@gmail.com.
Awesome. Right. I love it. Appreciate it. All right. Well, you all have been listening to the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, who is the founder of Black Bikers Vote. And we should say that you've done this not only in Pennsylvania, but you've also done this in Georgia, right? You did 4 rides down in Georgia?
3 in Georgia. We wanted to do 4, but I mean, and shout out to the biker community in Georgia. I mean, they were so excited about it. One group actually had done the same thing the same time that we did ours in October. They had done one and even used a very similar name, and so it was just amazing. So when I went back, it was easy. We plugged in together and pooled our resources. And but I mean, it's just as you said earlier, we want this to be a national movement to see. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to see black bikers roll into these states that are trying to repeal black voting rights and roll into state capitals? And I mean, to demonstrate and to protest. I think that's important.
I actually firmly support that, and I'm saying this publicly, I will get on my bike and ride down with you to do that.
You heard it, folks. Cut the tape for me, Troy. Send that to me. That 5-second clip, please.
All right. Listen, everybody, that's Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. Black Bikers Vote tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. Church of Christian Compassion, a gathering at 1, kickstands up at 2. Be a part of it along the route. Get more information, hashtag Black Bikers Vote on all social media. And if you're on our Facebook page, you can actually go on the Facebook page and click on the link and get more information. Thank you, Reverend Tyler, for being here with us and taking time out of your schedule today. You're listening to Solutions on Word with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for a serious fire location in Northeast Philly, Common Avenue near Milner Street. Fire at a waste management facility. Schuylkill eastbound is heavy. Blue Route to Gladwin. Also, earlier disabled vehicle at Spring Garden out of the way, but delays still go back to City Avenue. Schuylkill westbound backs up Vine Expressway to Montgomery Drive and the Boulevard to Belmont. 95 northbound is heavy. Vine Expressway to Bridge Street. Southbound we back up through the construction. Common Avenue to Girard Avenue. The Vine Expressway heavy westbound 8th to the Schuylkill. In New Jersey, backing up on the 42 freeway southbound at Creek Road. Northland 55, we back up from Deptford to the 42 freeway. And 70 westbound slows between 295 and Westgate Drive. Report brought to you by Audible. Freshen up your playlist this spring with Audible Plus. Listen all you want to thousands of select Audible originals, audiobooks, podcasts, and more. Start a free 30-day Audible Plus trial when you sign up at audible.com. That's audible.com. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
From safe to seamless, convenient to contactless, and local to express, SEPTA is the Philly way to go. Plan your trip at iseptaphilly.com.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Obama. Barack and I are so thrilled that we got our COVID-19 vaccine because this is a deadly disease, and this vaccine will protect us from getting really sick. Getting vaccinated is safe, and it could save your life and allow us to start getting back to seeing friends and family again. We can do this. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Tune in Saturdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power. Hosted by Mark Palmer.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
The time is now 5:47 p.m. and the temperature is 63 degrees. This time and temperature check is sponsored by SEPTA, serving the community for over 50 years. To plan your trip, go to iseptaphilly.com. Welcome back to Solutions. This is Amadi Braxton, along with Dwayne Royster.
Yo.
Bishop Dwayne Royster, excuse me.
Yo. Either way, that makes a difference.
Well, that was fun having Reverend Tyler on to talk about.
Like I said, I felt sandwiched.
your 2 hosts for your 2 shows, yes.
Yes, it was kind of interesting.
It was an abundance of co-host riches.
Absolutely.
Well, I think, it's cool. I wonder, I really hope it inspires some of the low propensity voters to actually register and vote. I don't know. When he talked about riding through the low propensity voting neighborhoods, and you can feel it under the wheels of your bike.
Yeah.
Meaning more potholes, less money invested in those neighborhoods. I think that's very real. And again, just to repeat what he was saying, it's like DA, we learned the last election just how important, I hope we learned, or more of us learned, just how important the district attorney is as an elected office. I know a lot of younger people in my family learned that through that election cycle. It's so critical. We're faced right now with a situation where, because, we have, this is my own, personal belief, and, people know we've had D.A. Krasner on here a few times, but he represents the effort to end 30 years of mass incarceration as a policy that has failed us, has not made us safer, has destroyed many communities, many families, separated families, too punitive, not dealing with the scourge of drugs as a healthcare issue. And those things, we have to continue to be moving in that direction. And his opponent, from what I'm reading and discovering, Vega, who was fired by his office, by the way. I didn't realize that he was one of the former ADAs there. Yep. But the more I'm reading about him, I have been for those of you who follow Sean King, the journalist activist who has a very strong web presence, he has been doing a ton of research about Vega and just the role he has played in wrongly convicting people in his past career when he worked in the DA's office, and he was in there for 35 years. So if you think 35 years, that really covers the whole the whole period of mass incarceration. That's when he was doing his work, and there's I would encourage people to check out the information for themselves. But there are a number of cases that he highlights of people who were wrongly prosecuted and imprisoned, wrongly charged, prosecuted, and imprisoned under this man. And so we don't need to go back in that direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Well, hey, I want to get back to that, but I see we got a caller on the line.
Yeah.
Rick from Germany. Rick, welcome to Solutions on Word. How are you tonight?
Fair to Midland, man. Fair to Midland. I have a question for you about President Joe Biden.
Sure.
Do you know much about his history in Ukraine? And what do you think about Ukraine and American-Russian relations of the moment?
Well, I mean, the Russian ambassador has said recently this is the worst time America and Russia have had relationships. I certainly understood the history of Ukraine, especially as it relates to his son and the conversation that the Republicans kept trying to bring up during the course of the election around, what his son got out of Ukraine when he was a consultant to a particular firm that was working in Ukraine at the time. Outside of that, I don't. Fortunately, foreign policy is not my expertise, although I study some pieces of it, but have not dug deeply into Ukraine in the same way.
Okay. Do you think he will
what
be able
information do you have, Rick, about Joe Biden's history in Ukraine?
It's a dirty one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care to say more?
No, I don't. I don't care to say more. I will leave it to your voting public to do the research on that. But I would say I think Joe Biden is going to have a hard time making peace at home while wagging his finger at what's going on with the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really so sure about. I mean, look, first of all, let me just be clear. I never understood this, but the Republicans got in bed with the Russians, and I do not understand that. Right? For the Republicans, in particular, during the McCarthy era and others, like the Cold War, we were total staunch enemies of the Russian government. It was an Obama administration that had a really rough relationship. Donald Trump gets in because we all realized he was a puppet and is probably mostly owned financially by Russia. And so he began to not only get close with Putin, but he also began to get close to other despots and autocrats and dictators around the world at the same time. So I certainly hear your concerns about Ukraine and other things. I mean, let me also be the first to say, and this is going to sound really bad, but I don't know too many politicians that don't have some skeletons when it comes to policies and things that they have done. And I'm not making an excuse for Biden. I mean, almost all of them have some issues somewhere along the line. So I hear that. But, I mean, the things that I heard from Biden on Tuesday night were the very things that could actually help this country get to a place of thriving, rebuild our economy, and get us as a nation moving in the right direction. And so I hear you when you talk about Ukraine, but right now I think folk are concerned about whether they can go out of their houses and not get shot by cops, whether they're actually able to get jobs that pay a living wage, whether they have the health care to get treated if they have COVID-19 or related diseases that might come down the road that the government's not going to pay for in that place, that people actually have health care, have access to quality education, that there's an infrastructure being built right now. So I hear you on that, but I'm not so sure that is the place where most people are thinking about in terms of Ukraine. I think right now they're just trying to figure out, am I going to be able to have enough money that when I finally get back to work and get a job, I still have a roof over my head? And I think that's what folk are concerned about right now.
I will close out by saying, you mentioned the water pipes and lead.
Yeah.
I think there's not only lead, but fluoride and chlorine, which is used commonly to filter the water,
Absolutely.
which makes the water even more toxic. And I think if he can get that project off the ground, that would be a big boost to young black men who want to work.
Absolutely. I totally agree with it. I think the infrastructure programs are really opportunity for us to get America back to work. Not just men, but also women as well. We're living in a time when the building trades and other industries are not beholden to any one gender anymore. But I do think that this is a real opportunity for folk to be able to take back ownership of their communities, be able to earn a living, being able to do it and learn skills at the same time. So I 100% agree with you on that one. Thanks, Rick. We really appreciate you giving us a call in to the show today. Really appreciate that. You have thoughts on this, Amadi? Or just...
Yeah, I mean, a number of things. I think I do agree with Rick in terms in a larger point that I think he was making is that we have to stay mindful and attentive to Biden's foreign policy agenda, while we also are, maybe excited and energized by his domestic agenda. And I think too often we see them as separate when they're actually connected through finances, right? The amount of money we spend on the military-industrial complex and on occupying other countries has a direct impact on how much money we have to spend at home on domestic programs, on education, on all of these things. So I think that's very important. I also think, I wonder in this period of COVID where the whole globe, barely anyone on the globe has gone untouched by COVID. We're all touched by climate change. Can this be a time of renewed common purpose globally? And we can put, and can we begin to shift away from, a lot of war is all based around money and resources, right? And so how do we collectively move toward the same things I've been calling for that we do here in the U.S. around COVID, care and accountability, mutual care and accountability on a global scale when it comes to foreign policy issues. I just heard on the BBC yesterday morning, they were talking about how the UK is cutting its foreign aid to women's reproductive health care globally that they fund in countries that where women don't really have any opportunity for education. They don't have access to health care and reproductive health care like in places like Africa and Asia and things. And they're cutting their budget for that by 85%.
Wow.
Because of the economic downturn in the UK because of COVID. And I said to myself, and listening to a woman who ran these programs internationally was talking about, by doing this, you are creating more susceptibility to COVID, less opportunity for women to advance in these societies, because if they don't have access to reproductive health care, it's less likely that they'll be able to go to school and educate themselves. So I guess my point is that this is a time where we should be, yes, we have to take care of ourselves and our own health here, but we should be coming together with other countries around the world and refocusing our attention not on amassing weapons and occupying territory and fighting over energy resources, but figuring out how we can live sustainably together as a global community. And so that's what I'm going to be looking for. I don't think we talk enough about foreign policy on our show, and I would love to have us back, bring some people on to address some of these issues. So
we're giving 60 million vials of AstraZeneca. Of course, it's never been approved here, but we're trying to give that away. And I hope actually it goes to some
India.
Countries. Yeah, to India and actually some other poor countries that really need it as well, too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe on the other side of the break we can talk about what's going on in India because it's with COVID, because it's really out of control. Absolutely. All right. You're listening to Solutions on WURD with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
Hi, WURD family. My name is Kim Hall Jackson, and I am a colorectal cancer survivor. I'm also a wife, a mother, an aunt, and a sister, and now proudly a grandmother. This Mother's Day, the best gift you can give is the gift of life with the Go to Know campaign. WURD family has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Independence Blue Cross Foundation, Penn Medicine, and LabCorp to provide free at-home screening tests for colon cancer. All WURD listeners can register for a free at-home screening test as part of the Go to Know campaign. This campaign is designed to provide African Americans with free testing for early colon cancer detection. As mothers, we always put our families first, but now we need to put ourselves and all the mothers in our lives first. In my 10-plus years as a survivor, I've attended my daughter's wedding, 4 college graduation, and this year I'll celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary. Get your test today. Go to the Go to Know banner on WURDradio.com and register yourself and your loved ones today.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We've had quite the conversations tonight. Thank you, Rick from Germany, for giving us a call in. And we want to remind you the phone lines are open, so you can give us a call if you want to engage in conversation with us. 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. Or you can dial in 1-866-361-0900. We look forward to being in conversation with you and talking with you tonight, seeing what's on your mind, concerns about the nation, about Philadelphia, about Pennsylvania. Oh, so many things going on around the world right now. So many things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other thing that, you kind of just get sick of talking about it and these cases happening. But, the case of Andrew Brown in North Carolina is turning into a real scandal. I mean, it was scandalous enough that they execution style murdered this man. But now,
while he was leaving.
Yes.
Not when he was coming at them. He was leaving.
They shot him in the back of the head.
Yes. 6 times.
So the family was allowed to see, I believe, 20 seconds of video from one body cam, although there were, I think, 8 officers there. And the family is outraged that they are not being allowed to see the video, the full video, as well as like that being released to the public. And a judge just ruled that the police won't be forced to release the video. I think they were given within 10 days to show family more of the video footage. But this just to me smells dirty. I mean, it smells like they don't want anyone to see the video because the video is damning. The video probably shows what we think it will show. And apparently, unfortunately, in North Carolina, they have laws that really protect the officers, the police department's right to not show the video. But it just stinks to high heaven to me. The FBI is now bringing a civil rights investigation into the case, and so that it's an ongoing saga. And just the part that really upsets me is the fact that family members who are grieving the loss of their loved one, in the midst of their grief, and the midst of their outrage, they have to fight for justice for their loved one while they're grieving. I mean, that's what happens in these cases, where anyway, I could go on and on. But then there was also the case of another case of a young man, I think a young Latino man in California, who had cops kneel on his neck for an extended period of time, and he died. You know, very similar to George Floyd. It just seems like every day we're hearing about another case of police murder. It's really out of control. It's really at a crisis point. And not to say that it wasn't like this before, but we now just have cameras and people paying attention to what's happening, so we're seeing it, and it's overwhelming.
Well, I think for a long time, police operated above the law, right? They thought they were above the law, and that they could be, you know, judge, jury, prosecutor, and executioner all in the same vein. And somehow or another, society just accepted their word. And I think what's happened is the democratizing presence of smart cameras is really what has really changed the game. And people are beginning to see this for what it is for themselves, that there unfortunately, there might not be that many crooked cops in the world, but there are plenty of supposedly good cops that are covering up for the crooked cops. I find it hypocritical. Let me just say this. I find it hypocritical that when something happens in the community, they want the community to come out and spill the beans and tell everybody what happened, who's doing what, when, and why. And that these same police officers that want the community to come out and say what needs to be said, and I agree the community should be telling on what's going on, they won't do the same thing for the bad cops that are amongst them. And so that is hypocritical in my book. And I think that that's very problematic. But, I mean, let's also be perfectly clear with this as well. I mean, I think that in some places in this country where cops still feel like they rule, they are trying to reassert their authority because they feel like it's being challenged at this moment. And so there is a level of paranoia and also a level of them saying, hey, what are you going to do about it? I mean, it's the same thing with Derek Chauvin when people were yelling at him to get off of George Floyd, that he casually put his hands in his pocket and leaned in deeper to Floyd to basically say, what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
And I think cops around the country right now are basically sticking their hands in their pockets and basically saying, what are you going to do about it? You know, we have the district attorneys, we have the judges, we have the media on our side, and they're going to take our word because we're the good old boys and nobody's going to challenge us wherever we're located right now. And I think that that's traumatic. It's traumatic every time it happens. But for the families that have lived through this, it is compounded trauma. Compounded trauma every time that there eventually might be a court case and the officer's not held accountable. For everyone that has had an officer not held accountable, it's compound trauma. For the ones that actually do get some level of, and I don't want to say justice, but say accountability, there's still compound trauma every time they go through this trial because they relive the experience of losing their loved one in this very violent way over and over again. And so, you know, to some extent, too, I wonder if police officers at this point are just like, we're just going to get the black folk and we're just going to compound their trauma on a daily basis. And they might not necessarily be doing it out of their conscious mind, but their subconscious and their bias is continually rising over and over again, that they're like, somehow or another, we got to put these N-words back in their place.
I don't know if it's conscious. I just know that it's conditioning, right? Bias is about conditioning, and we've had 400 years of conditioning to see black life as less than human, to see black life as devalued, to see black life as a threat, to see black life as worthy of harm, worthy of keeping in check, worthy of brutality and violence. That is what has been ingrained in the psyche of not just white officers. I think black officers too, you know, officers of color too. It's a part of it's a part of what is inculcated in them. I do think that in addition, you actually have explicitly overt, you know, white supremacist infiltration in law enforcement. You know, in sheriff's departments around the country in particular, but in law enforcement. I mean, you know, isn't the state trooper uniform of New Jersey based on Nazi officers? Wasn't it modeled after that?
When they're in their dress uniform, yeah, it looks very similar.
So I'm just saying,
Black
you
and
know,
all.
yeah, that whole history. So, you know, and I think right now the Capitol Police in D.C., they're looking at white supremacist infiltration within their ranks. The Department of Homeland Security is looking at white supremacist infiltration within their ranks. And we need to do that here at the local level as well. But I do think that this, I really do.
You had to fire half the department.
Huh?
You had to fire half the department. I mean,
well,
that's one way to get rid of the police.
I have nothing to say to rebut that. But I do think that we are in a moment, we are at a pivot point. I do think that the world being stuck at home, watching what happened to George Floyd last summer, the uprisings that have happened globally in response, I think that a shift and the fact that Chauvin actually got convicted on all 3 counts, I think that represents a shift, and I think we have to keep pushing in that direction now and not allow it to go back. You know, I also think too, you know, we have an administration now, right? We have an attorney general in Merrick Garland whose kind of landmark career-making moment was prosecuting the Oklahoma City bomber, who was a white supremacist militia, you know, a militia guy. That this is his expertise. The fact that he basically the day after Chauvin's conviction announced an investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department. You know, he's going to be bringing back the consent decree process, where, you know, under the Obama administration and Attorney General Eric Holder, they went into local police departments and basically, you know, it was like the federal government was watching them and was assessing everything that they had done and forcing them to make changes in their policies and practices. So we're going to be seeing more of that, not just in Minneapolis, but in other places. I think, did he already announce someplace else that he was going to do it?
Yeah, he's going to Columbus. He's going to Columbus.
Columbus, right.
And I think they're going to do something in North Carolina. Well, you already announced they're doing North Carolina, too, so.
Right. So, you know, I think, you know, it's interesting. You know, we talked about Biden's speech the other night, and how they had Tim Scott doing the rebuttal. And he's the chief negotiator on the Republican side around the Policing Act, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So we'll see how that goes. But because I think that, you know, the big sticking point is that the Republicans don't want them to get rid of qualified immunity for individual officers, which basically prevents officers from being sued for their actions. They want the police departments, their compromise is to have police departments be able to be sued for the actions of an officer of abuse or murder. But we'll see where that goes. But I just think we are the fact that we're even able to have that debate, and the fact that policing is even on the table as something that's being looked at, to me means that, and that we saw in the Chauvin trial, police officers actually testifying against another police officer.
Yeah.
That is a watershed moment. That doesn't mean we are guaranteed to have continued steady progress, but I think we're at an important pivotal point.
Well, it was so blatant, though. I mean, oh, my God. I mean, all kinds of policing practices were broken in that moment. And so, yeah, I think the chief came out, the training officer came out, fellow officers were coming out, former officers were coming out. Everybody was coming out the woodwork. And the only officer they could find to agree with him was somebody that had retired years ago that gets paid a lot of money to run around and do these court cases around the country. So
you're talking about the guy from Maryland?
Yes.
Who now, because of what he said, he's an expert witness. They get paid hundreds of dollars an hour to appear in these court cases and give their expert testimony. And he, I think, previously had worked in Maryland, was he a medical examiner?
No, no, you talking. There was the medical. No, there was a cop that they were talking to too. I thought he was from California.
Oh, yeah. Well, and he didn't even really do that great of a job, the cop from California, for the defense.
He didn't have enough experience to
No.
to do that. But but they couldn't find anybody from Minneapolis to back him up.
No, definitely not. Well, but what I was going to say is the guy from Maryland who was the other medical expert providing expert testimony, who really was lackluster and I don't think helped the defense at all, and was saying very questionable things. He was already under, I think he was being sued back in Maryland for testimony he had given in another case. And now, since the Chauvin trial and the way the demonstration of his so-called expertise there was so poor that they're reopening all these cases that he gave testimony on back in Maryland because they think that he just lies.
Well, he probably does. He probably does. But look, we got a caller on the line who wants to join the conversation with us. Hey, Dwayne from Southwest, welcome to Solutions on Word. How are you tonight? Dwayne, are you still there? I guess Dwayne is there. Okay, well, let's go to Yusef in Oak Lane. Yusef, welcome to Solutions on Word.
Good evening, sir, and Mr. Monty Braxton. I just want to say I appreciate your morning program. I know you don't have no call-ins in the morning. I listen to you every morning, you and Mark Kelly Tyler. And you had a good show this morning. I appreciate when you was talking about the person that spoke on the platform about there not being no racism in America or something like that.
Yeah, Senator Tim Scott. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was one time because people don't want to accept the fact that things may not be the same date and time as 200 years ago, but the mindset is still the same. You know what I'm saying? And they got to realize that the time people like that around. Proof of it was January 6, 2021 in Washington, D.C. If that don't convince you, nothing else will. Now, I tell people all the time, especially black males, stop walking out in broad daylight doing stuff that attract the police. But like on Broad Street, for some reason, they'll get right on Broad Street and start acting like, they lost their mind. One guy was just a couple days ago shouting obscenities at people and jumping at people's cars because he wanted some money, and people trying to go about their business. I said, brother, there's a police station right across the street on Broad and Champlain. They will come out there, man, and they will do whatever they do right here on Broad Street to you. They don't care about your mental issues. Then a white guy comes along and does the same thing he does right in front of the police station. The police just look at him. They don't say nothing to him. I said, don't you see the difference? He shouting obscenities at people. He said something to me, something about, what time does the bus come? Brother, I'm driving. I stopped to go to Paul's Herbs right there on Broad Champlain. And as I parked my vehicle, he jumps to me, comes in, what time does the bus come? I said, brother, I'm driving. I don't know nothing about no buses. You got to ask the bus company or maybe ask the police. They can tell you. Oh, you know. I said, look, please, leave me alone. I'm not bothering you. Go about your business. He kept jumping at me, and he seen the police there because he knew that he was white and I was black, and if I was to do something to him, they're going to arrest me, possibly do me some harm. And that's what our brothers need to know. They need to be warned that they got to act a certain way because if they don't, the police today, or wait, I don't know what it is that they're trained, what kind of training they get, but they look for people that show signs of mental illness, and that's what they go after. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you giving us a call there.
Yeah, and they don't know how to deal with people who have mental illness in a way that is appropriate and de-escalating a potentially violent encounter. That's the biggest problem.
Gotcha. Well, let's do this because I know Woody's on the line, but let's go to commercial break, and then when we get back, Woody from Winfield is on the line, and also you can join the conversation as well. 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. You're listening to Solutions on Word with Amani Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Obama, and I wanted to let you know that Barack and I couldn't be more thrilled that we got our COVID-19 vaccine. This is a deadly disease, and we know the vaccine will protect us from getting really sick. It's how we'll start getting back to seeing friends and family and doing all those things we love again. So I hope you'll join me, Barack, and millions of others around the country and get your vaccine as soon as it's available to you. It's safe, it's free, and it could save your life or the life of someone you love. To learn more, just go to cdc.gov/coronavirus. I know it's been a long, hard year, but we can beat back this pandemic. With your help, we can do this.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Barbers on Broad. We know grooming is important. Let us show you why. Our barbers have over a decade of experience providing quality services in a professional manner. We specialize in all the classic styles and cuts while delivering the sharpest finishes. Located at 1220 North Broad Street, Suite 3, best in town, best on Broad, Barbers on Broad. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next service. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation.
What's up, Philly? It's Solomon Jones. The world is inching back to normalcy, but our approach to educating our children may never be the same. Commonwealth Charter Academy, or CCA, has nearly 20 years of experience providing a flexible, stable online education in the comfort of your home. Enroll today at ccaeducate.me. Here are the benefits to your children and your family. 1. World-class education and accredited lesson plans streamed directly into your home at no cost to you. 2. Laptops, headphones, and high-speed internet access, all provided at no cost to you. 3. A learning environment completely free from classroom risks like bullying and other distractions. CCA has been in our community long before this health crisis and will continue to faithfully serve students and families well into the future. Join the more than 2,500 students from Philly who already attend CCA. Enroll now at ccaeducate.me.
Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Amadi Braxton and Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Awesome.
Let's get to Woody in Winfield, who's been waiting patiently. Hi, Woody.
Hey, dear. I'm glad to know that you know I'm a patient man, right?
You have a patient-sounding voice, and I appreciate it.
No, when everybody understands the importance of communication, I think then we will understand that the news media is the one who really reports the fuel that fears. The fuel of fear to the rest of the nation, black or white, Asian or Indian, police and everybody else. News reports fuel fear of black males around this country. Because of that, we have created a public health crisis for black males. The bigger and the darker you may be, you become a greater threat to overall society. And even in a white society where you walk through a community and you're seen, you remember back in what's his name, James Byrd, that was picked up with a tow truck or some type of truck and pulled until his skin fell off his body by 3 white males. And these are things that happen in society all the time. The young man who got to Brother Floyd, he's a white guy, but his mind is sick. So when we talk about sickness and mental issues, we need to check our police as well. Because remember, we're on the foundation of a place that created white supremacy, white male supremacy. Let me put it in order because even the females had to step back. It's white male supremacy that is creating an environment that pushes this issue. But our news media definitely needs to be dealt with in a way in which they should be charged for certain things that bring danger to one particular group of people just by how they report things. So I would say to you, if we could start to educate more, of course, we didn't get the proper education in school. Millions of kids didn't get that, black kids, a majority in inner cities. But these whites don't have education about us properly. All they have is fear, and that's promoted by the news media. So what do we do with something like that? Dr. King tried to tackle it. Others try to tackle it. But the deal is this. Unfairness is still unfair. even if it has to do with what we believe is fair. So if a white person looks at a big black male and he's treated unfair, well, that's normal in America. No, that's not normal. The universal law says fair is fair. You don't segregate it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. If, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Imani. I don't.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say it'd be great if we were operating under universality, but we're not. And the fact of the matter is that it's not even the conscious mind that operates in many white folks' mind. It's the unconscious mind that creates the implicit bias that allows them to see a big black male not as a human being, but they see a big black male as an angry barking dog.
But how did that happen?
So, well, I mean, that happened
through America's way of promoting this information.
It actually goes back. It goes back pre-America, right?
Yeah.
This goes back to Europe in general, right? And colonial powers. And the way that you are able to go dominate other nations is that you see them as less than and see them as animals somehow needing to be culturized and colonized so that they can come up to your standard, because there's even a level of arrogance that assumes that the standard that you have is the right one in the first place.
Yet you were the first man on earth that everybody else comes from.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, but
with that thought in mind, there's a particular group out of, like I said, one race called human, many cultures and ethnicities, one color called melanin with many shades. So out of the darkness came the light, and if you don't want to be a part of the human race, that's how they started all this issue of how race is viewed. Race is singular, not plural. If we keep that in our minds and correct ourselves on a daily basis, you can't even use the word racism. You have to use segregation, bigotry, hatred, but you can't use racism because it's not a real word unless there's more than one race.
Yeah, Dr. Kane Hope Felder, when he was at Howard University, really did the study about racism, and in particular as it relates to religion, and that really said that the modern concept of race as we understand it today is only about 500 years old, and that prior to that time, the constructs of race as we understand it did not exist. And so even the understanding about race and white supremacy is a manufactured thing that began about 500 years ago when Europe was really beginning to develop its own sense of identity and power and wanted to dominate the rest of the world. So totally get it, Woody. Thanks for giving us a call. We appreciate that. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add on that.
No, I mean, the only thing I wanted to say is, I 100% agree in terms of how the media shapes people's perceptions about black people. And, I remember, just growing up in the height of the drug war as a young person, right? I was born in 1971, so in the 80s, mid to late 80s was, my teenage years, preteen, teenage years, highly impressionable time, right? I'm taking in all this information. Every image that I saw, I grew up in a rural area, not a lot of black people around me. Every image I saw on television coming at me from the New York City metro area news was black men in handcuffs, young black men in handcuffs, because they were constantly showing drug busts on television.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how black men were being seen throughout America through that whole period. And I actually just saw an article. I didn't get to read the full article. I read the first bit of it. In the age of so much information, sometimes I've turned into a headline reader more than anything else, unfortunately. But this headline talked about the concern that has been raised recently by mental health experts about how much these police killings, how the media is showing way too many images of police abuse, police killings, inundating our psyches with this, and how deleterious the effects are, how traumatizing it is for us in the public to be having to take that in every day, day upon day upon day. And I'll just say this one last point, which is that the Kerner Commission that was put together by Lyndon Johnson after the so-called race riots in the 60s, many of which in response to conditions and in response to Martin Luther King being assassinated, the rage that kind of came out through in different urban areas. One of the key findings that is often overlooked talked about the role of the media in shaping people's consciousness and understanding of black people and black life, and how there were so few images, positive images on television about black people, and that had a huge effect on the conditions of Black America and also the conditions of the racial divide in America. So just, all of my points to underline what Woody was saying.
Well, I mean, let me just say this. So on Wednesday night, the Power Live Free team, that's also led by Reverend Tyler and Elder Melanie DeBose, actually did a town hall, a symposium called Shifting the Narrative, and it was around gun violence in the media in Philadelphia. And so there was a managing editor from Philly Magazine that was on. Ernest Owens was on. There was a reporter from NBC3 or is it 3NB, whatever it is. There was also one of the people that works behind the scenes at the same station about assigning articles. There was the new managing editor from the Inquirer that was on. It was moderated by Denise James, who used to be of Channel 6 News here in Philadelphia, and Elder Melanie DeBose. And it was really a conversation about how we can work with the media to shift the narrative around the issues of gun violence. And I would also include that what the policing are doing is an issue of gun violence as well. And that, in many ways, if you talk about certain issues on television, at the end of the program, at the end of the article, there's a disclaimer or something in there about telling people where to go get resourcing for, where to get support. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was, can the media, when we're having these conversations about gun violence or police brutality, put a 800 number where people can call if they're being traumatized and they need support and help in that particular moment? Can they lift up that number? I would imagine after our show, or after even the morning show that I do with Reverend Tyler, that we probably need to put that information out there, because the things that we're talking about each and every week are traumatizing to people, right? The issues are heavy. They have to be talked about, but people also need some additional support other than just, calling into the station or listening to that. And so how do we help people begin to shift the narrative, which is also one of the things that was talked about was that there's this notion that somehow black folk have more capacity for suffering than everybody else, which is not the case at all. We don't have the capacity for suffering. Part of what we see is a result of the ongoing suffering that folk are experiencing every single day and the way it gets lived out in community. So, I think that there is this conversation. I know power is a part of the conversation about how do we change that narrative. And, certainly I know we'll be talking with, Mark and I will be talking about what we can do to our show. And Amada, you and I should talk about it too, to add resources for folk to be able to get access to the support they need, after, listening and being a part of those very heavy conversations.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say, even if black people are more capable of enduring, what did you say? Capable of enduring suffering?
Suffering, yeah.
We shouldn't have to.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, listen, we got Prince from Schuylkill on the line. Prince, welcome to Solutions on Word.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. I think the narrative is skewed to the extent that every church that has 1,000 members has a media outlet, has a church media outlet, and it reaches out through media to its own congregation. And so collectively, you can take that media and create your own media entity. I think what happens is that we are so caught up on the social dynamics of the problem, and we're so irresponsible to the effect of economics in our own community, and putting the male dealing with the situation of men marrying women and raising children. It seems to be pate now. It doesn't seem to be the standard anymore. And so whenever you start talking about gun violence and social issues, and you run into a whole slew of single moms, single parents, children raised with no fathers and stuff like that, that's got to be the wound right there. We got to handle it from the womb. I don't really think that. I think my generation, have a lot of trust issues. We don't trust folks that we have seen with no deliverables, but yet you say my community or my neighborhood or my hood. One side of the street is institutionalized by mortgages and banks. The other side of the street is low income, institutionalized by the government. So tell me, where do we have the independence to say my community or my neighborhood? And if we don't have those things, then then that's a fundamental problem. And another thing is that when you look at the Chinese, you never say, okay, this is Chinatown, and these Chinese are a threat, or these Chinese are this or that, because they have the ownership of the economic in their neighborhood. And we get so, when African Americans who are older decide to have a narrative and they don't directly encounter the harm or the hurt that my neighbor next door or that somebody living in a bad neighborhood does, it separates us. So we have to find a way to bridge this gap, so you go home and you sleep in your house and nobody's shooting up the neighborhood, and you come back tomorrow and only talk about who shot up the neighborhood. But intimately, you don't have anybody who lived through that shooting that night or who is articulating what actually happened, which resolves you of you trying to have the narrative to that crucial or that problematic situation. And I think we need to do a better job and not co-signing for stuff that we have no tie into. We need to get the people journalistic responsibility, say we need to get out there in that neighborhood and find the people who have a stake in that neighborhood and find out what actually happened. So the story I'm telling is not something I Googled or something, my opinion is something that, and that's, that's my soapbox. I want to say right there, I don't want to offend nobody, but I'm just saying we need to collectively tie into each other in ways where somebody else is not giving a narrative. And I'll hang up and I'll listen to you guys.
Yeah, no, Prince, I appreciate that. I'm going to push back a little bit on this, right? Because two things, right? One, I don't want to get us caught up in the Republican tropes that it's about the fact that the black man is not in the household and the black man is not taking care of his responsibility, because actually they've done studies that have shown that black men, even when they are not living in the household, are actually better providers for their children than white men are when they're not with the person's mother. So, I think that the fathers are more engaged. They might not have the material wealth, but they have a lot of other things. Second of all, I want to push back on this thing too about, the situation that black families find themselves in today are a direct result of conditioning and circumstances that have been caused by systemic racism and white supremacy in this country. We just got to call it for what it is. And this notion that somehow black fathers aren't there now, a lot of time black fathers weren't there 50 years ago, and they weren't there 50 years prior to that at the same time. I think we have this idyllic idea that somehow we had all these intact black families that, since the time of slavery, once slavery ended, the black family was perfect. It wasn't. And there were a lot of challenges that were that. Families were broken, and there were a lot of things that were left undone in the black community throughout time immemorial. Now, it wasn't looked at the same way, and women were far more dependent on black men for some economic stability. So a lot of times we also had women that were staying in relationships that were not healthy or whole because the community couldn't be healthy or whole because of all the drama and trauma that it was living through at any time. We didn't have the words for it then. We didn't have the psychological understanding, but we knew what we were feeling and the pain that we were experiencing on a regular basis. That's why Alice Walker writes The Color Purple, right? Because she's talking about the experience of black women coming up into Jim Crow South and everything that they had to go through in relationship, not just to white folk, but what they had to go through in the midst of their own understanding of what it meant to be a black woman in that particular point in time. And I'm sorry, that wasn't a terribly healthy experience for black women as well. So I think, we can certainly talk about also an economic agenda. And while I hear you, part of what I'm also hearing is kind of owning this white capitalist mentality about what economics is supposed to look like. I got me and I got mine and I ain't worried about nobody else. And if everybody would go get theirs, then we'd all be okay together. Well, actually, that's an erroneous concept. It has absolutely nothing with being black. And again, it's a white man's trope about this is the way the economic situation and the economic infrastructure is supposed to look like in this country. If we go back to Africa and our tribal communities, there was a shared understanding about what we had to do and how we shared and supported one another so that there were really no high highs or low lows, but that most people were able to find comfort and support and the interdependence that needed to exist in community. And so a lot of the things that you're talking about are not any of those things that actually are in the DNA of what it means to be black in America. A lot of things that you're talking about when I'm listening to you talk about it is basically sort of white Christian nationalism about black men need to get back in the household and deal with their kids. Now, let me be clear. every parent needs to deal with their child. I totally agree with that. But a lot of times there's a whole lot of reasons why families are not working out. And we should have a conversation about the black family, but let's have a real conversation about the black family and not one that's based on white Christian nationalism. Let's have a conversation about how we build strong, healthy, thriving communities and build an economic system for our communities that are actually going to build everybody and not just a handful of folk that have certain business skills, because everybody can't be an entrepreneur. Everybody can't run a business. That's not their calling. It's not their giftedness. But how do we find ways to support each other that we're all bringing our gifts to the table and building a strong economic situation that everybody's able to thrive together? So that's what I think we need to really take a look at. And so, I mean, I would just challenge you, brother, to really go back and ask yourself the question, these ideas that I have, is this really based on the white man's way that he wants me as a black man in America to be able to thrive, or is this really based on what's in the best interest of my community? So, you know, I'll just leave that right now. I know we got to go to break. So, you know, Amadi, I don't know if you want to say anything, you know, since before we go to break or not, but, you know, I have to offer that.
I'll just say intergenerational trauma. We can come back to that topic on the other side.
All right.
You're listening to Solutions. It's getting hot up in here with Bishop Dwayne Royster and Amadi Braxton. We'll be back.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if your energy bills are adding up, Pico has programs available, like new payment options, flexible billing, and financial assistance to help you manage your bills and your budget for the essential energy you and your family need. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with payment arrangements. See if you qualify at pico.com/help.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery, right here on WURD Radio.
From safe to seamless, convenient to contactless, and local to express, SEPTA is the Philly way to go. Plan your trip at iseptaphilly.com.
This WURD Wellness Vignette is brought to you by Keystone First. WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
This is Halana, your resident expert health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Let's talk about your choice not to smoke. Now, of all the healthy lifestyle choices you can make, this could be the most important. Did you know that smoking causes cancer, heart disease, and even type 2 diabetes? Smoking is also responsible for upwards of 440,000 American deaths per year. Here's the thing. When you smoke, it becomes difficult for the blood in your body to flow freely, often leaving you tired and cranky. It also contributes to the decrease in circulation, which can severely affect your immune system. In a time where we need our immune system to be in tip-top shape to keep us healthy and safe, choosing not to smoke is one of the best choices you could make. Commit to living smoke-free today and boost your immune system in as little as 1 day. Let's choose to strengthen our immune systems, improve our lung function, and decrease our risk for stroke or heart attack by not smoking. Choosing not to smoke is something we can all do to support our overall personal and community health. Go ahead, commit today. Stay well with WURD. Happy, healthy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. This WURD Wellness Vignette was brought to you by Keystone First. For more information, visit KeystoneFirstPA.com. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with Amadi Braxton.
Hello.
All right, we've been in there tonight, getting it deep. So thank you, Prince, for your call, and appreciate it. Always look forward to talking with you. All right, let's go to Brother Spread Love from West Philly. Brother Spread Love, welcome to Solutions on WURD.
God bless Brother Dwayne, Sister Imani, and of course our brother Troy on the boards, always doing an amazing job. How y'all doing this evening?
Doing all right. How you doing?
Give God the glory every time. Thank you for your show and your works. Love to all the WURD family. Of course, everyone suffering right now. You know, our hearts, thoughts, and prayers are with them, and everyone working to make it better. You know, God bless our hearts. Maybe do it together. And God bless everyone incarcerated, especially incarcerated falsely. Free Mumia.
If it's all right, I was going to throw 2 cents in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we have $1. Make some change. I think one thing we suffer from, or at least one thing we've been beaten and, trained and bludgeoned to do, is afford way too much humanity to these savagely degenerate cannibals who, have their way with us all over the planet. I think, it's like we're mesmerized or bewitched or beguiled into believing that one day they're going to wake up and realize they're wrong. I think we need to start, coming to terms with the fact that this is their agenda. It's been their agenda ever since. That, for example, if somebody's going to keep stabbing you in the back, you ain't going to keep coming to them with open arms. You may not necessarily want vengeance, but you got enough sense to, hey, I need to stay away from that person. And I think that's a conversation that should be on the table for us as a people so that we can regain our sovereignty, so that despite their agenda, it doesn't sabotage our well-being. Also, I think we tend to be rather myopic in our approach and perspective on what's really happening and look at ourselves as a confined group within this landmass when we could realize that, like people say, we're not the minority, so why do we use the word minority to refer to ourselves? We're the majority. The people that actually want to destroy us are the minority. And if we were able to have a coalition of our efforts combined with the efforts of those of us of like mind to liberate ourselves and be uplifted on a global scale and work to do that on a local scale connectedly, I believe we could see great results. And I'd like y'all input on that as well, of course.
Well, thank you, Brother Spread Love. We appreciate you giving us a call and sharing that with us. I mean, certainly, I totally agree. I speak to that all the time, that it's not just about black folk coming together, right? I mean, Brother Malcolm talked about the fact that we really are 4/5 of the world, right? When you consider folk that have melanin in their skin, and you look at the world, 4/5 of the world are Asians and Africans and South Americans and Central Americans and Black Americans and folk from even various elements of Asia and parts of Europe that are dominated by the Asian presence as well. So I think we have to really find ways to come together, to not vilify each other using what white folk claim to be the reasons why we should not come together, and try to keep us solid from one another, but recognize, see each other's common humanity, see the gift of the melanin in our skin, and begin to operate as a people coming together to be able to move and create change in the world. So I affirm what you're saying, brother. I appreciate you for that. I don't know, Mata, do you have anything you want to share on that?
I don't have anything different to say, except, I mean, I think that, and I've said this before, we've been, I've been talking about this year in response to, of course, the violence against black people by police, as well as the rise in violence against Asian Americans we talked about right after the Atlanta shooting spree, the mass killings there. I do believe that we need to actually build a cross-racial coalition in order to, like, I believe that that is really our only path forward. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk amongst ourselves, quote unquote, ourselves, which is quite a diverse black diaspora, right? But I think in addition to that, we need to lock arms with our other brothers and sisters that you were alluding to as the global 4/5, in order to overcome many of the conditions we're facing. So, that's what I think. That's my approach.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. So I know we have a couple other things that we want to hit on tonight. You had some other things you want to talk about.
Well, I heard about that they're getting ready to ban menthol cigarettes.
Yes.
That actually could be a whole show. We might need to save that till next week, because I'm very curious as to what people think about that. And apparently this is being articulated by the FDA as an equity issue, basically saying that people of color are more likely to smoke menthol cigarettes. Like, I think 95% or something of menthol cigarette consumption is by people of color, communities of color.
I can believe that.
Whereas in the white community, there's among white people, there's not, it's like below 25% or something. It's very, very small, maybe 5%. I said 95 for people of color, so that must be 5% for everybody else. But it says in this press release I'm reading, with these actions, the FDA will help significantly reduce youth initiation, increase the chances of smoking cessation among current smokers, and address health disparities experienced by communities of color, low-income populations, and LGBTQ plus individuals, all of whom are far more likely to use these tobacco products. So it's not just the menthol, but it's any flavored cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And these products that have the flavors are seen as more addictive than non-flavored tobacco. And because they're disproportionately used by communities of color, then that means there's disproportionate harm in those communities. So I'm like, all hell's gonna break loose when this
Oh
goes
yeah,
down.
yeah. Come on, taking people's Newports. Everybody smoked a Newport. You know, got those Newports. You know, I remember as a teenager when I, briefly did my thing. Everybody got Newports. They went to the store, got a pack of Newports, and smoked them. Was always the menthol cigarettes. So that's certainly a thing. It actually could be very helpful for our communities, though, to end menthol cigarettes and break that habit so people can move beyond that. I don't want to stop that conversation. I do think we need to pick it back up, but we do have one more caller on the line.
Oh, okay, great.
We got Don from West Philly. Don, you only got a couple minutes, so just want to let you know that when you're getting on. Welcome to Solutions.
Our community is not listening. That particular community is not listening to me and you. They hear it, but they don't hear it in their heart. And until Nation of Islam, Cardi B, Jay-Z, Nick Mill, Lizzo tell that community what y'all doing is wrong. What y'all doing is wrong. You could be a rapper, but you ain't got to be no criminal. You could be a rapper and still be a carpenter. You could be a rapper and still get your GED. And what I'm seeing out here now, black folks, African Americans, we're going to come extinct. We're almost unemployable. Because right now, I'm seeing a generation roll up and don't even know how to act on a job. There was a time we act up in school. Then there was a time for to act up in the community. Now, I see this community, these young folks now, they don't only act on a job. And let me tell you something. I tell my family, I'm not spending my whole life trying to save you, your children. Only people I'm trying to save right now, I'm in my 70s. I'm trying to save the ones that are awake. Because right now, what I see, until Nation Islam, Jay-Z, tell them to stop. Tell them to stop playing around. Because this stuff is getting so chaotic out here. We got carjacked. They're going to take your car.
Well, thank you, Don. I think your overall point is that there are certain people in the celebrity world who could be doing more to influence behavior out there on the streets and to be promoting the right thing. And I agree with you on that point. One last quick thing I'll say is that I was tickled to see that Rudy Giuliani's house was raided by the FBI, and I can't wait to see that saga unfold. And we can talk about that next week. But I just had to mention that.
Office, computers, cell phones. They got everything.
And he's going on Fox News to talk all about it. And I heard a lawyer the other night on another network saying, "Keep talking, Rudy." The prosecutors are saying, "Yes, please keep showing up on Fox News and talking. That's perfect. You're really helping our case against you. Thank you."
He doesn't have presidential protection right now, so he just needs to he needs to slow his roll and
Exactly.
Chill out on that. All right, everybody. Well, that's it for this week on Solutions. Thank you for listening in and being part of our program today. We appreciate everybody that called in, everybody that checked us out on Facebook, YouTube, on the air, through the app, by whatever means that you listen to our show tonight. Thank you, Brother Troy Wilmore, for holding down the boards and using your special skills to keep the program moving forward in a very powerful way. Thank you, Ms. Brockton, for everything you do each and every week.
And thank you.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad to be able to be here. Now, you all got to stay tuned for Envy McKee. She's going to be up next. And listen, family, do us a favor. Go out. Change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will.